Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the ICE Vendor Engagement Day. My name is Tom Thompson. I'm the Industry Liaison Officer at ICE, and we will be going through a number of things today. First off, I think I ought to at least tell you a little bit about our organization from a structural standpoint, and then we'll go through a guest speaker that we have. Steve Hall is our Chief Enterprise Architect. And then we'll move into Anita Perkins, who's our Small Business Representative. And then we'll discuss a couple of acquisitions that we have most likely of interest to you guys. And then the Q&A. So when you do your Q&A, please wait till the end, and we'll get to those as quick as we can. And usually we've had pretty good success with answering all the questions on the same day. So first thing about ICE is the mission overview. All right. Now I'll just run through these pretty quick. So the mission for ICE is to protect America from national security and public safety threats by enforcing immigration and custom laws. Then we get into the organizational structure, and of course, in our ERO office, the Enforcement and Removal Operations, this is the primary function for ICE as far as what you would typically see, like in the news or whatever, where we have our detention, arrests, and removals, things like that. Our Homeland Security Investigations Office is a little more diverse. I mean, they do things that a lot of people may not know that ICE does, as far as disrupting criminal organizations, transnational criminal organizations, and going after money laundering, and even the child exploitation. So that's a little bit different. Probably a lot of people don't know about that. Then we have our M&A Directorate, which is pretty much the backbone for ICE in terms of all the accounting, the finance, facilities management, policy development. And then we have OPLA, which is our Office of Principal Legal Advisor, and they do everything from litigating all the removal cases, as well as helping with our procurement operations and providing us with legal guidance and assistance there. Now, I'll be introducing to you Mr. Steve Hall, our Chief Enterprise Architect from the Technology Transformation Office.
Thanks, Tom. I appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. My name is Steve Hall, and I am the Chief Enterprise Architect working out of the Technology Transformation Office under our CTO, Rich Clark. Within the Technology Transformation Office, we primarily deal with, well, as the name implies, transformative technology, right? So technology that has a significant impact to the enterprise. And to that end, we have several different engagement areas. We work with digital transformation opportunities, so mission aspirations that ultimately need a technology in order to fulfill those aspirations. Most of the time, if we are dealing with it within the TTO office, it's a technology that perhaps we don't already own. So we have to go out and do the market research, do the planning, and determine, what, if any, technology does exist within industry or within the enterprise that can be leveraged for those initiatives. We also do a lot of work with technology trend analysis, with driving the future state vision and strategic priority alignment. And to that end, we're going to talk about the strategic technology roadmap today. This is really the culmination of those other engagement areas. We spend a lot of time working within OCIO, within our various divisions and branches, within the portfolios, to identify what technologies are they looking to, or are priorities for them in the next 2-3 years, right? Now, with that, we want to make sure that they're aligning to our strategic goals. OCIO does have strategic goals, which obviously, not obviously, but ultimately map to our M&A goals and ICE goals as a whole. You may have heard those on the last vendor engagement call. I know that on that vendor engagement call, the CDO, CTO, and our Chief Innovation Officer all spoke about the priorities, and we're going to cover some of those, or maybe some overlap, but we'll get into a little bit different topic on those capabilities. So our goals, we have goals for cybersecurity and infrastructure, for mobility, data modernization, Southwest border is a big deal right now, as well as accelerated service delivery. How do we get solutions out to the mission faster, better, cheaper? So to that end, our strategic technology roadmap is going to include technology capabilities that we're making decisions on either this year, next year, or even further out more strategically, like FY25, 26. Now, those technologies capabilities are categorized in different ways. We have them categorized by strategic theme, which is what's shown here on this slide. We also have them categorized on the back end more within technology domains and functions and things like that. But our primary focus right now is on these strategic themes. What is important to OCIO right now? The 6 that are on here are not all of our strategic themes, but we are going to focus on some of these for today's discussion. We also have others like customer experience or tactical communications. Customer experience is a big push right now from the White House and then ultimately down through DHS and down to ICE. And I believe you heard our Chief Innovation Officer on the last vendor engagement call. If you didn't, I encourage you to go back and listen to that one. He spoke about the ICE portal initiative and how we're looking to really drive that customer experience and provide more to our customer base of not just our non-citizens, but also our law enforcement partners and other contract partners. So I'm going to touch on some of the capabilities that are priorities this year, or at least maybe not this year, but upcoming. And let's start with the cloud. So I know that our CTO did talk about the cloud last time and spoke about how we had an initiative to get to the cloud, right, as fast as we could, get everything to the cloud. Now we're trying to get more cloud smart, right? And part of that is adopting the cloud native technologies. That includes not just a single cloud, but we're looking at a multi-cloud strategy, right? So we are looking to optimize our cloud investments, bring parity between our multi-cloud. So when I say multi-cloud, we do have a presence in Microsoft Azure, in Google Cloud Platform, in AWS, and we're really looking to optimize those investments, making sure that we can manage the 3 clouds, manage the how much we're spending in those clouds, the utilization of the infrastructure as a service within those clouds, making sure that we're right-sizing our infrastructure. So just getting smarter about how we implement into the cloud. With DevSecOps and cloud have a very tight relationship. Within the DevSecOps space, we are looking at containerization. I know that Rich Clark did touch on that last time, and integrating that containerization functionality within our DevSecOps pipelines. Also, just the nature of putting sec in DevSecOps, we are also looking at enhancing the DevSecOps pipeline with more security-related tools. So that has been a big push. And then, looking out down the road, and right now and down the road, how is serverless going to impact our deployments within that pipeline, and how that affects the accelerated service delivery goal? Zero trust architecture has been a hot topic, not just this year, but in relatively recent previous years. We are looking to push out Zscaler to the entire enterprise. We've had a pretty significant number of users that have been on it already as we've fine-tuned it and really got it to the place that we want to be. But now we're trying to get it out to the rest of the enterprise, which also does promote the mobility goal. Now, more importantly, it promotes the zero trust goal with SASE, secure access, service edge capabilities, and being able to really lock down who's accessing what resources and making sure that it's done in a secure manner. Identity is a big one as well, not just with zero trust capabilities or strategy, but also just as a whole, how we are authenticating and authorizing our users, both internally and externally. Internally, we've always been able to provide the capability, and it's been evolving over time. But externally, being able to provide the functionality that's necessary, provide those building blocks that's necessary for initiatives like the ICE portal, such as being able to authenticate a non-citizen, for example, which is not something that we've been able to do as an enterprise in the past. So we're looking at possible solutions for that. To that extent, we are looking at it from a zero trust perspective and really consolidating our identity providers. So those identity providers, such as login.gov, how will login.gov play into a non-citizen user experience across the federal government? Other potential products like Okta or Azure AD or other products like that, and how will that tie into our overarching target architecture? And security data plane. The security data plane we're realizing that with zero trust comes a lot of data, data that needs to be analyzed in order for the systems to be able to provide risk responses and what have you. So we want to be able to do that in a very smart way. And so looking at products, with Apache Kafka as kind of the underlying capability there is something that is really being investigated right now. There are other things as well. I'm going to keep moving though, just because I know that we are on a time constraint. There's many other initiatives going on within these spaces, within the 5 pillars of zero trust, as well as these other spaces, but I'm going to keep moving. So within mobility, we're recently been investigating and then ultimately going to be pushing through a solution for records management on our mobile devices, making sure that we optimize and enhance those record management capabilities on the devices. As a result of that, we did have to disable iMessage, but that gives another opportunity for us to start looking at other rich content messaging applications that can provide end-to-end encryption and records management and things like that. So that's something that's going to be coming up in the next couple of years, as how we're going to invest in some more rich content messaging applications. Unified endpoint management. Now that is, or previously, I think our CTO mentioned we had a love-hate relationship with our current infrastructure. I think that we've come to love it more than hate it as we gain more capability with some of the products that we already own. And that includes for mobile device management and mobile application management. We're adopting more of a hybrid approach to make sure that we can still have our containerized applications that need to be more secure, as well as have more of those native applications, for example, within Microsoft 365 mobile applications or what have you, on the outside of the container that can still be managed through a mobile application management platform. Digital signing, we are also looking at really more of an enterprise digital signing strategy. We have a lot of ad hoc things to meet certain needs, but we want to try and move towards a more enterprise capable digital signing platform. Moving on to data modernization, I know our chief data officer, Corinne, she on the previous engagement call, she went through a lot of data modernization topics. So I'm not going to try and repeat what she had. There is more of an investment now into the API management and an API management strategy as well as a proof of concept for an API gateway. So we're looking into different architectures for how we can integrate an API gateway really as part of Zero Trust, but also as part of our data modernization strategy. How are we sharing data? How are we putting data in the hands of not only our development teams, but also our citizen developers, right? Citizen developer, low code, no code, it's becoming more prevalent in our environment. So when I say citizen developers, I don't mean outside of ICE. I mean more of our non-IT developers. So within the mission space, giving them the low code, no code tools, as well as access to the data that they need access to in order to provide them, so be able to develop their own solutions, is a big focus. Process automation. This is the last one I'm going to touch on, and it's really getting part of it's process automation, but it really kind of pushes into more of the artificial intelligence and machine learning space as well. You all may or may not have heard of this little thing called ChatGPT, which is kind of taking the world by storm and starting kind of a AI arms race of sorts. ICE needs to be able to respond to how we are going to, one, look at the benefits and potential use cases for this emerging AI technology. As we see it's being implemented more and more into some of the products that ICE already leverages, like Microsoft 365 with Copilot, which is not going to be available for government use for a while. But Microsoft 365 within ServiceNow. There's chatbot integrations and virtual assistants within the search space that ICE could really benefit from if we put it in, if we put together a responsible AI or ethical AI strategy and start leveraging some of these capabilities to really take a lot of stress off of our mission space. In the southwest border, there is an influx of people coming across the border with the potential repeal of Title 42. That may, we need to prepare for that in the smartest way that we can within OCIO on how we get solutions to the field that can make their lives easier, that can make their mission faster. And that, part of that means getting them access to policies and procedures accurately, quickly, smartly through cognitive search or through intelligent document processing or other of these artificial intelligence type capabilities that are coming out. So with that, we are going to be doing a lot of market research within the AI ML space. And with that, we are also going to be probably reaching out to some of the vendors within that space to try and research and devise our strategy for how we're going to respond to that technology moving forward. So there are some opportunities there for some interactions. And with those interactions, you can reach out to, if you are interested in talking to us about any of these capabilities, or you think you have something to bring to the table to talk about some of these capabilities, you can reach out to, it's on the slide there, but Chris Lee is a team member of mine. And he does a great job with the vendor engagement, but he's also really engaged in some of these other activities as an enterprise architect. So I encourage you to reach out to him with any of those. And with that, I will turn it back over to Mr. Thompson to continue the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. Appreciate it. That was very informative. So now we'll move on to Ms. Anita Perkins. And Anita is with the Office of Acquisition Management, and she is our small business specialist.
Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to briefly go over how to do business with ICE and some of the IT numbers. Next slide. So we have the acquisition planning forecast system. You see it there. I post requirements daily in that acquisition, APFS for short, sometimes multiple times a day. Also, there's the DHS component contracting opportunities, and the website is listed there. The open market contracting opportunities will be listed in SAM.gov, and that's the link. Also, once a month, with the exception of April and September, the Small Business Office conduct a 15-minute one-on-one meetings with small businesses and the components. The link is listed there, where you can sign up and register for that. Next page. ICE IT Award Summary. For 2022, we had 1,921 actions. Total dollars obligated in 2022 for IT is 580.9 million, and 74% of the total dollars eligible for competition. Next page. This is a small business summary for FY22. As you can see, our established goal was 38%. We came in at 35.0%. SDB 9.0%. 9.6, we achieved a goal of 9.6%. So we did exceed that goal. 8A, it's 9%. And we reached a goal of 5.9%. So you have to keep in mind, all 8As are SDBs, but not all SDBs are 8As. So those two categories are broken out. Hub Zone, we exceeded our Hub Zone goals. The goal is 3%, and we came in at 4.13%. Woman-owned small business, 5%, and we finished with 5.3%. And SDVOSB, or Service Disabled Veteran-owned small business, 3%. Is the goal, and we exceeded it. We came in at 3.4%. I also like to mention our 38% goal for small business. While we didn't exceed it, DHS goal is 25%. So that's a goal that's negotiated between OSDBU and ICE. So while we exceeded the overall government goals, we fell a little short with our ICE small business goals. Thank you.
All right, very good, Anita. Thank you very much. Before we move on to the acquisition part of this presentation, I'd like to remind you that you can ask your questions in the Q&A. So now we'll move on to Patrick Walsh, who's the unit chief for our IT division in the Office of Acquisition Management. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm going to just give a brief overview of some of our acquisitions that we have going on, and then we'll jump into specific slides. You can jump a slide back for now. I know we've received a lot of questions about our financial management system recompete. I do want to clarify that that will be handled by DHS rather than the components. So please keep abreast of DHS's request for information regarding the financial management system. Currently, ICE uses FFMS, but as several vendors are aware, we are looking to compete that in the future, but DHS will be handling that procurement. And then another thing that I realized wasn't part of our slides was the Chief Data Officer Support Services. I just realized this actually when Stephen was presenting. That solicitation is live on Oasis now, unrestricted. So if you are interested in supporting the Chief Data Officer, propose on that, please. And another requirement that isn't part of the slides, it's not actually an OCIO requirement, but an OAQ requirement. So trying to take a little bit of OCIO's time for this one, but the OAQ has a requirement for contracting support services This is about 5 personnel is what we project for this. That RFI is current. It has been released on SAM.gov, and the APFS is current at P20230611342. I can put that in the chat if folks want me to. This previously has been an 8A requirement, so we're trying to help out Anita with the 8A numbers on this one and planning to keep that 8A. And I do want to clarify, based on some of the responses we've gotten to the RFI on this one, that this is contracting support rather than acquisition support. And what I mean by that is we're looking for folks with experience, contract writing, acquisition plan creation and approvals, solicitation creation and approvals, proposal review, award decision documentation, justification and approvals, and then post-award issues. So this isn't writing statements of work or PWSs or performing tech evals, things like that. Of course, this is not inherently governmental work. So if you're interested in that, we are planning on releasing the RFP in May and looking to award that in June. Without further ado, I do want to preface one of our slides coming up on the tech mod that the CO unfortunately isn't here today, but the PM is going to speak to it. And if you have any specifically contracting or acquisition questions, I'll either try to answer it myself or get with the CO and get back to you on them. All right, thanks. You can proceed to the next slide, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Carlton, you're muted.
I'm sorry. Hello, everyone. My name is Carlton Myers. I'm the contracting officer for ICE Office of Acquisition Management, and working very closely and hands-on with me is our contract specialist, Jennifer Kasdan, and our PM point of contact is Raymond Milani. And so one of the requirements that we're working on right now is the ICE electronic discovery system for our legal team. And the ICE electronic discovery system, or e-discovery as it is more commonly referred to, is a commercial off-the-shelf solution enabling our attorneys to manage all of their legal, regulatory, and investigative matters. Okay. As stated on the slide, the platform supports the collection, review, redaction, production, and agency records to comply with litigation discovery requirements. So OPLA is seeking to transition to an e-discovery software as a service platform hosted in a FedRAMP certified environment. We are still currently in the early stage of this requirement. The estimated dollar value right now is $14 million. A small business program has not yet been established, but through our current discussions, we are estimating that solicitation would be released sometime in June, and we anticipate an award in August of this fiscal year. We did a previous one, but that was a relatively software requirement under that task order that you see ending in 83. That was the first source, but this, of course, is a more major requirement. And again, we're still in the early phases of it, but we do anticipate solicitation sometime in June and an award in August. So if there are any questions about that, you can put them in the Q&A chat. And that is our ICE electronic discovery software system requirement. All right. And at this point, I think I'm going to turn it over to our next person.
Right, thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Monish Desai. I'm the IT program manager for the Text Modernization Program. Our contracting officer is Miranda Collins. She's not able to join us today, but if we have any questions that we are not able to answer, we will get back to you. The text modernization program is a modernized solution to our legacy CBP text mainframe solution. It went live into production in 2017. The system is used around the clock by over 10,000 field users across the country and internationally. The solution comprises of a front-end application, ICM, which is Investigative Case Management, and a back-end support system, for which there are two contracts: front-end user-facing application contract for ICM and a back-end support systems contract, which is SESS. The current ICM contract uses the commercial case management software, which is configured specifically for HSI's needs. ICE awarded the 5-year sole source contract in FY22 for O&M and cloud hosting. The current solution is near the end of the planned operational lifecycle, and we are estimated to release the solicitation in FY25. The backend support contract, SESS, is an ICE Gov Cloud-based solution that provides information sharing, data warehousing, and search capabilities. The contract is competitively awarded and is up for recompete in FY24. We are currently working on procurement strategies for both ICM and SESS contracts. Both procurements are anticipated to be competitive, and we are planning an industry day in May-June 2023 timeframe, where we will have a lot more details around both of these procurements. The announcements will be posted on sam.gov. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A, and we will try to address them as best as we can. Thank you. Over to you, Tom.
All right, very good. Thank you very much. Appreciate that information. Okay, so moving on for our upcoming events, the DHS vendor outreach session will be May 25th. So make sure that if you're interested, you sign up for that early. Then we're looking at doing a text modernization industry day sometime in late May, early June. That one will go into further detail on the one you just heard about. And then following that, the next industry engagement day will be somewhere around August, maybe late July. It's a little fluid right now. So now if you would, and you have questions, please post them in the Q&A section, and we'll take a few moments to try and answer those questions for you. So be patient, and we'll get to as many, if not all of them, as quick as possible. Thank you.
Well, hello, everyone. We've only got a few questions so far. So as Tommy said, go ahead and ask any questions you guys may have from the presentation today, whether that was Mr. Hall's presentation on our tech strat or the acquisitions that we just got briefed on. In the meantime, I'm going to take a look at what we have already answered. I believe Steve answered the question that came in from Christopher Stice. Are you looking to do internal team development on or reach out to industry for assistance for your cloud efforts? And Steve said, hi, Chris, much of our cloud efforts will fall under our existing cloud services contract, but they may be opportunities in the future for specific initiatives that fall outside of the scope of the existing contract. That being said, I'm not aware of any specific initiatives at present that are looking to industry for support. There was an anonymous question about the APFS record for Mr. Welch will be shared again. I think that's and Patrick, you supplied that, so we're good there. That's good. You can find these questions and answers as well in the Q&A section. Ken Richard asked, what is your current electronic discovery tool? and Mr. Milani responded, the Relativity server hosted and maintained in Microsoft Azure. Next question. Will the text modernization specify Palantir as required platform, or is ICE looking to update the platform as well? And I see Manisha is responding now. So maybe I'll come back to that question in a second.
Chris, I can answer that.
Oh yeah, you want to just verbally do that, Manisha? That'd be awesome.
Yeah. I didn't know you would get to that so fast.
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this ICM contract is going to be open compete. Last year we did a RFI where we found that there are a lot of vendors out there that can do a case management solution. So we are not just looking for a Palantir based solution. It can be it's open compete.
Thank you. Appreciate that. The
Okay.
next question, I believe, on the list is, can you please update what happened with the SAS2 acquisition? And I believe Mr. Walsh responded, it's currently in evaluation of proposals. Next question, any update on the ICE client BPA recompete? Mr. Walsh said, currently evaluating proposals. Chris Dorflinger asked, are you currently using a COTS tool today to manage, right size, and give cost visibility to your hybrid cloud instances? Steve, could you take that one on if you know?
Yeah, stand by. Let me read through that real quick.
Sure. I'll go ahead and go to the next question. Steve, you can let me know when you're ready to answer that after the next question. For data security e-discovery, are you looking for encryption? I believe that would be someone from the first presentation on acquisition today for the e-discovery. Someone answer that for us, please.
Hi, this is Raymond Milani from Office of Principal Legal Advisor. Can we get some clarification on what
It was asked anonymously, so
Okay.
unless they clarify in their question again down the line, I won't have any more
okay.
beyond what they asked. So
Right.
again, it was for data security e-discovery. Are you looking for maybe they meant encryption, but
Right.
they say encryption, so yes, it's a little vague what they meant. So we'll
Okay.
just go ahead and skip on past that. Steve,
Right.
are you ready to respond to that previous question?
Yeah, I mean, at least partially, I think. Want me to just bring my camera back on?
It doesn't matter.
All right. So to answer your question, we will be using Kubernetes platforms that are offered by the major cloud vendors. There's also talk of other platforms, I mean, such as like ECS Fargate and some other solutions as well, depending on, you know, what cloud it's in and what offerings there are. We're not trying to force anybody into anything specific, but we're trying to wrap processes and guidance around essentially establishing guardrails for the different offerings within the different cloud providers. So I don't know if that specifically answers your question, but we will be using the platforms that are offered and not looking to procure a new Kubernetes engine.
Steve, so that was the question down a couple. The first one was, are we using COTS tools today to manage and right size our cloud instances?
Oh, I'm sorry, did I read the wrong one?
Yeah, so I think the answer is yes to that. I know that our cloud broker they are utilizing tools to right size our imageries and actually do give cost visibility across the cloud. Steve, I know we're continually making more progress in that area from our discussions with them, but if you know specifically anything you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, the tool that they're using today is, I believe, Kion is the one that they've been implementing recently. Now, how mature that product is within our environment, I think that's something that could be determined. That's something that we're trying to enhance. I think Cloud Custodian is another more scripting product that they're trying to use in conjunction with Kion to provide some of that. But I think there still may be room for enhancement in those areas, and there may be room for other products to be brought in as necessary to meet some of those demands.
Yeah, I always forget Kion. Thank you for that, Steve.
Yeah,
That
no
product
problem.
name for some reason never sticks to me. Skipping on down to James Boykin asks, which group is leading the effort on API management and evaluation of API gateway technologies? Well, actually, that is one of the projects I'm working on, and along with a number of the divisions within OCIO. So it is a cumulative effort across a number of groups. We've got the Chief Data Officer who briefed on that a little bit in the last quarter, talking about our data management sharing strategy. We've got the ID office, security involved, obviously, from API Gateway, and we also have our solutions delivery division with API first kind of development efforts going in Tech DevOps. If anybody has any questions specifically about or wants to talk about API Gateway or API management, they can email me. It's in the slide deck, but I'm chris.lee@ice.dhs.gov. But that's a very broad subject, but we are definitely underway in evaluating API gateways and looking to do a POC, I believe. And we've been looking at technologies for 18 months to 2 years now and watching along the road of maturity and the spectrum of what capabilities exist. Next question. Apologies, I joined late. Will this be recorded? It is being recorded and it will be posted on YouTube. We will post the link, the YouTube link back on SAM when it's available. Next question. Currently, is any ICE's SaaS-based solutions hosted within FedRAMP environment? If yes, are they hosted within a FedRAMP moderate or high level? Steve, I believe the answer, all our stuff's mod, right?
I mean, it depends. So some cloud environments are FedRAMP high, even though they're not considered. I mean, even though they might be a commercial space, right? So, but I will say that we do have a FedRAMP requirement. Different systems have different requirements, whether it's mod or high. I think we have some in both, but it does have to be FedRAMP. Now, whether or not it's a government cloud or commercial cloud, that's a different question. But we also have some in both of those, but they are all FedRAMP.
But all our SaaS solutions are all within a FedRAMP environment. We don't have any of our SaaS outside, so we're not using anything outside of FedRAMP for SaaS. I believe OCIO CDOS was briefly mentioned as live on Oasis. Could you please provide a little bit more on that? And Mr. Walsh responded, questions are due 4/11 and proposals are due 4/17. Again, questions are due April 11th and proposals are due April 17th. What is the email address for Ms. Perkins? She provided that. It's nita.perkins@ice.dhs.gov. Steve Schramm asks, what is the technology for printer/MFD fleet modernization and optimization, and how does it fit into the cloud strategy? I don't know if we have anybody on from that particular area. So Steve Schramm, if you're listening to me, you could follow up with an email to myself and I will try to help get that answer for you. But that, again, I'm chris.lee@ice.dhs.gov. Van Kirstein, are you saying that ICE would entertain migrating from Palantir to another SaaS solution? And Mr. Desai said, as part of an open compete, we are open to diversity of solutions. Is TTO currently using an AI assessment framework for the independent evaluation and usage of AI technologies as part of your modernization effort?
So we do have an evaluation framework for technology in general for evaluating emerging technologies. However, we do not have an AI specific assessment framework. We do have some research that's provided through like Gartner and Forrester that that we are using. But to answer your question specifically, no, we don't have a specific AI assessment framework that we're using.
Thanks, Steve. Will the industry day be providing more information on the ICE electronic health records initiative that is currently out on sam.gov? I didn't see any slides on that effort. Mr. Walsh, we didn't dedicate a slide to HR, but I appreciate you bringing it up. Encourage any interested vendors to respond to the RFI by April 13th. Will ICE be providing market research for the Criminal Alien Investigations Initiative, CAII? Mr. Walsh said, we don't typically share our market research with industry. CAII is in early stages right now with APFS imminent and project award on December 31st, 2023. Christopher Stice, do you currently have a training or end user engagement tool for to reach your internal staff training requirements and those of your external customers you support? Do you currently have a training or end user engagement tool to reach your internal staff training requirements? I don't, Mr. Stice, I don't believe we have anybody on this call today that can answer that question. I would recommend you emailing me and I can get that over to either the training office or within OCIO's training group. I'm not sure who would best be answering that question for you. Again, I'm chris.lee@ice.dhs.gov. Can you provide details on security functionalities that you're hoping to add into your DevSecOps and containerization pipelines? Steve, I don't know if, did you want to try to take that? I don't think we have anybody on from IED today to speak to SecDevOps, but if you from a high level wanted to talk about that from a tech strat.
So I know that we're looking at, for example, we talked about containerization. So we're looking at container registries. We're looking at continuous ATO documentation. We're looking at contrast security, so integrated security application testing, orchestration, upgrading our orchestration platform. I know that we've already put in place a lot of other capabilities that are already part of our pipeline or available as part of our pipeline, such as, let me see here, and forgive me, I'm actually looking at our technology roadmap. So container runtime, container vulnerability scanning is something that we already have. I mentioned contrast security. We're looking at software bill of materials, which is kind of that's also something that we already have. Static analysis and static analysis for IAC are some of those other things. Anything outside of that, I don't have visibility into at this time.
Thank you, Steve. That was excellent. You mentioned identity as a priority. What are you currently using for ICAM, and what are your future plans?
Sure. So presently, we still have a presence internally with internal authentication using ADFS as well as Azure AD. And at the department level, we do have some projects that leveraged our department's Okta solution. For external authentication, we have an Okta solution in place. And as I mentioned, we are looking at also login.gov, perhaps even integrated with Okta to get some of the more robust capabilities for IAM. There's also, I mean, ICAM is a little bit more of a loaded question because that also includes other credentials such as PIV cards and things like that, but I'm going to stick with IAM for now unless that doesn't answer your question.
Thanks, Steve. Someone asked, how does the ending of Title 42 affect the anticipated processing demands at ICE? I don't believe that we probably within OCIO and OAQ are probably best to answer that question today from an acquisition standpoint. I don't think there's anybody from senior leadership on the call as well today that would want to take that one on generically from a mission side. Mr. Stice, will you work with startup companies to sponsor for FedRAMP? I believe we have sponsored things in the past. Patrick, I don't know if you could speak to that, but I believe I know in some of the efforts in the past. I believe I know that in ID we've had products and projects where we've sponsored companies. I know we've been approached to do them, so I know we will hear those possibilities out when appropriate. Patrick, anything that you would add to that?
Yeah, I personally haven't been involved in sponsoring any startups for FedRAMP, but
yeah, I don't know, but maybe that's correct, Patrick. And like I should have probably prefaced, I don't know about startups, but we definitely have sponsored and worked with companies on getting FedRAMP.
And maybe that's something we can talk about at our next vendor day.
Yeah, startup companies, I'm not sure. We'd have to talk about it. I don't think we're against the idea. I just don't think that it's something we probably looked at before. Did the ICE team answer the question about whether ICE is currently using a tool or tools for cost visibility of hybrid cloud? We did answer that question. Steve gave that answer, and I believe he mentioned Kion and what was the other?
Cloud custodian.
Cloud custodian. Yeah. Mr. Boykin, as part of your zero trust strategy, how is ICE addressing data loss prevention requirements?
So that's something that we might want to follow up with our information assurance division, who's running that the Zero Trust project. I will say that we do have products that perform DLP, but I can't say as to what's on the roadmap presently on how they're going to put those in place. I know that data tagging and classification and stuff and things like that are a priority for them right now, but I'm not sure exactly when they'll start implementing DLP policies.
Thank you, Steve. Mr. Lieber says, Anita mentioned having one-on-one sessions. What happens to the information exchange at these sessions? In other words, how do you inform the SMEs that someone might have the skills ICE is looking for? Tommy, I don't know if you want to jump in here. I know that Tommy and I and Anita do a lot of these one-on-one sessions. Patrick also joins us in that regard. And Tommy, let me give it a shot and see what you think. But generally, Tommy will take any requests that come to me, they come to Tommy, and we meet with vendors one-on-one from an acquisition, contracts, best vehicle use. Tommy and Anita have that down pat and give that presentation to any vendors that are looking to gain work through acquisition. But specifically when it comes to skill sets and SMEs that are in areas of a technology, that's typically where I jump in and I take that information in whatever fashion the vendor has it. If it's a one sheet, this is our capabilities, this is what we do uniquely with our manpower. And I utilize the relationships I have within the divisions and pass that information along. And we also catalog that information within an internal system to keep track in case something unique comes up and somebody says, hey, do we have anybody that can do this? But typically, if you're around some of the areas specifically that Steve mentioned today, these are the ones we're really been tackling more so. Sec DevOps and containerization. I'm trying to think, API gateway, API management. These are all things we've been talking to a lot of vendors on. We've been working on cognitive search, natural language search. We've talked to vendors in that regard. But one-on-ones never stop. We have quite a few every week, and we definitely pass those on, that information on. Tommy, anything you'd add to that?
Well, yeah, no, I mean, you did a great job kind of explaining the process, and we have a really good process in place. So if you want to meet with us, you're going to get the acquisition side of it, and you're going to get the program office side of it. And Chris is a very valuable part of the technical side because he can understand all the stuff that goes over my head, and he can forward on the information, communicate that, articulate it to the program office much better than we can. And if they see that there's an interest in meeting further, then they'll work back through Chris and me and Anita, and we'll get you set up with the SMEs if they find that that's something that they're further interested in. But in the meantime, like Chris said, we do catalog the information that's provided. You're able to at least, you know, get in front of the procurement people, the program side through Chris. So that way we are able to understand what new technologies might be out there, new solutions, and you can further understand what ICE is all about. So thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Tommy. So moving on, next question. Are we looking to expand our data warehouse footprint? Is a current solution, and in parentheses, Databricks, meeting your needs? I know we use Databricks, and there's been a lot of goals that our CDO shop has, and they've been looking and continue to look at what options and solutions we have around data management and data warehousing. I don't know, Steve, would you want to expand on that, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that question is probably best fielded by our CDO office, but I will say that, we're always looking at the possible expansion of data warehouses, or, I mean, it really depends on the data and where it's going and what cloud environment it's in. But I will say that there's always opportunity there, but I would probably push that over to CDO.
Yeah, and I know that, we have met with a lot of vendors with data backplane, right, and data sharing across multiple components. So I think all the agencies are constantly always looking for what is out there currently and what can be gained out of looking at different options. So I don't know about expanding per se, but I think we're always looking at what options are out there for improving. Next question. Are there any efforts to transition to IPv6? And Steve was replying to the post probably when I got him to answer the last question. And he just replied, for the time being, ICE will commence with the opportunistic deployment of dual stack IPv6 configurations for any new infrastructure. New infrastructure must be support IPv6 and IPv4, but we are not looking at native IPv6 at this time. Thanks, Steve. Will market research be performed on Visa Lifecycle Vetting Initiative, VLVI? Patrick, do you know of that particular program by chance?
Sorry, can you reread it?
It's will market research be performed on Visa Lifecycle Vetting Initiative?
I'm not familiar with that program.
Yeah, me either. Andy Lieber asked, what improvements would you like to see in your DevSecOps processes? Well, that's a pretty broad question. I think we're constantly looking at DevSecOps, SecDevOps. I can't think of, and Steve, if you don't mind, we're constantly talking to our security folks, our operations folks, our developer team, our Q&A team, always looking at the tools we have that we're utilizing. Obviously, within the space of zero trust, within the tools that the PMs use. We've talked about API today. There was a specific question about security improvements within that pipeline. It's a constant, always changing thing. I don't think we'll ever stop saying we want to improve that space. It's not a perfect space in any way, shape, or form. And if anybody's been in the development world for any amount of time, it's never stops. Whether it's life cycle, old school waterfall to the Scrum methodology, it's always changing and growing. So, if there's something specifically you're wanting to ask about in that space, we could probably answer that. But broadly, it's continually being looked at. There's a team that meets every week that talks about our SecDevOps work, and not just from the projects in it, but actually from a tools perspective and a use perspective. Steve, anything to add to that?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, as far as improvements, I mean, I agree with everything that you just said, right? It's
okay.
Constantly evolving, but we're also looking at integrating the DevSecOps pipeline into more of our cloud offerings. I think it's probably more mature in our AWS offering than it is in our other offerings. So just, I guess, maturing that capability into all of our cloud offerings is something that is on our plate.
Okay. Next question in here is about describing the need and challenge we have for text message enablement. I'm not really sure if that's in the records management. Mr. Worth, I'm not sure specifically. And Steve, I don't know if we covered anything around text messaging today, or if we had anything on our text strat.
We did. We did talk about it, right? We talked about how we disabled iMessage, right?
Okay, right.
And, in favor of records retention, and how we are looking at potentially investing in a rich content messaging solution in the future. I will say that the challenge there, I think, is I think tactically some of our people in the field used iMessage for communications with on certain initiatives, and they're having with other partners that are outside of ICE on a more tactical level. And I think that trying to replace that with some other RCM tool is something that we're going to be looking at. When I spoke with our mobility team about that, they had it more like 1 or 2 years out, but there may be some needs from the field that get brought to the forefront that drive that to be more of a priority.
Thanks, Steve. And Mr. Worth, I know you said you have addressed this within another agency. Please feel free to email me and I can make sure that that gets to the right parties within OCIO. Steve, there's a question in here about ICE login.gov and impacting ICE's decision on utilizing the platform, if at all. I know we've been talking about that quite a bit stance-wise. Would you talk to that a little bit more? The recent news, I'm not sure specifically what they're referencing, but
yeah, I mean, if they could be more specific. I did remember reading an article a little while back, and I don't remember it being earth-shattering enough to where it would change our requirement to use it. But login.gov is one of those things that's evolving, and it's evolving rapidly based on the requirements of the federal agencies that need to use it and mandates from federal agencies to start using it to provide a better customer experience across the federal government for our users. So I would see that no, it hasn't really changed our stance on it. If anything, it's motivating it's motivating login.gov as well as their customers to try and drive that solution to be better.
Thanks, Steve. The next question I have is from Hussein Basaria. Will HSAI be seeking independent and vendor agnostic SBs to support the evaluation of their case management modernization program, planning and pre-acquisition requirements? And Mr. Desai said, an independent support is something that we are reviewing internally. Feel free to follow up with myself and Miranda. And again, you can find Mr. Desai and Ms. Collins' email address, I believe, in the slides. Do you expect an upcoming intelligence requirement this FY? I saw nothing on the forecast. Steve is responding to that now. I'll go on by that. Samuel Massenberg, who should I reach out to discuss our ICAM competencies that we have from DOJ? I'm not really sure what ICAM stands for.
It's Identity, Credential, and Access Management. But
okay.
Before I answer that one, I'll address the one before it.
Okay. Thanks, Steve.
So when you say intelligence, I'm assuming do you mean artificial intelligence? If that's the case, then we did talk about several things in that front. I will say that most of our engagements right now are for research and providing guidance to ICE more so than making an investment. However, there may be some proofs of concept in the areas of cognitive search or intelligent document processing that may or may not start this FY. The following question, who should I reach out to discuss our ICAM competencies that we have from DOJ? I would say route all that through Chris Lee, chris.lee@ice.dhs.gov, and then we can get you to the right people.
Thanks, Steve. As an 8A number, numbers were lower than the proposed goals last year. Does ICE anticipate releasing a larger amount of opportunities as 8As set-asides? And would you be open to taking capability meetings where we could discuss possibilities of use for RPA and data analytics to accomplish your goals? On the broader question, Anita, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, with regards to the 8A numbers being lower last year, we always anticipate releasing a larger number of 8As, but as you know, ICE competes. So even if it's going to go 8As, you know, we have to take into consideration most of the strategic sources or the mandatory use source strategic sources that DHS uses have an 8A track. So we will be looking to those tracks first. Usually if they're going to be sole source, it's probably going to be more at the end of the year to 8As that we've worked with and we need to award something quickly. So that's kind of how I'll answer that. And then we also have some initiatives through the Secretary, Deputy Secretary, President's Office, and the OSDBU office to address 8As and our other SDB category.
Thank you, Anita.
Well, hey, let me just jump in
Yeah.
there real quick, Chris. So
Sure.
as far as discussing the possible use cases for RPA and data analytics, as Chris and myself stated a little bit earlier, if you want to get in touch with us, email us and we'll set up a meeting as soon as possible to discuss your capabilities. So and as far as the 8A stuff, sometimes we're a little bit behind, maybe this time of year, but usually during the remainder of the year, we catch up real quick with those goals and pretty much meet the 8A goals. So we don't really have a real concern that we're behind, because we know that we're going to be making it up because we see procurements that are coming through. Anita works at making sure that we address the 8A scenario through market research that she's privy to. So yeah, we're going to definitely focus on meeting those goals. But as new procurements come through, maybe they're new, maybe they're follow-ons. One of the things that we'll do is look at the requirement and maybe do some research through an RFI, like a sources sought, to identify additional 8As if we really feel stressed, like we're not going to make that goal, and try to shift it over to an 8A competitive buy if at all possible.
Thanks, Tommy. I also want to just mention from the technology standpoint, the RPA and data analytics, both of those particular needs and requirements are met via the contract SWIFT that went out last year and was awarded. So I'm not going to say there's not any possibility, but the majority of our needs are going to be met out of the enterprise portfolio services portfolio branch and the SWIFT contract that was let last year. When does the CDO close? I'm assuming that was in relation to that contract that just the CDOS, and that was stated 4/17, which April 17th. Do we have, Sam Massenberg said, we have a data analytics strategy partner that is mature and seeking FedRAMP. Any suggestions from an ICE perspective? Mr. Massenberg, I would email me and then we can talk about that. I don't think there's anybody specifically that can talk about seeking FedRAMP on this call directly today. but Taisha is responding, so maybe she'll have something specific, but you can definitely email me and we can follow up on that. Phil Rhyme, how can how can your team ensure your strategic objectives have been met? Is there a QA process in place? I'm not, the strategic objectives from Mr. Hall's perspective, from our tech strat objectives. So we're tracking at a super high level of all the objectives within the divisions and branches within OCIO specifically. And yes, there is a QA branch, but specifically each one of the technologies and services that are being implemented have a set of user cases or customer needs that are being met with those technologies. Steve, I don't know if any specific customer in TechStrat objectives have talked about how they're measuring success. I don't know that we've actually asked that question in gathering our data for TechStrat. Steve, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with what you said. Most of the projects are being handled at that level, and they do run through our formalized process for that, but that's not something that we're tracking at our level.
Okay. Yeah, right. That's exactly what I was thinking. We probably don't have that. So again, Mr. Rhyme, if there's something specific you think tool-wise or capability-wise that we would find of interest, feel free to email us. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are further on that. And I'd be happy to pass that along to any of the folks we're working with as we're collecting strategic requirements. Next question. The vendors cannot see the APFS items beginning with a P, only the F numbers are visible. Please provide the F number for contracting support services. Patrick, or Tommy, someone from the OEQ office.
Yeah, let me look if I can get that number, unless Anita has it.
Okay.
Oh, I don't know, but know it and from a vendor's perspective, you're not going to see a P number. That's preliminary. It changes to F once the requirement is posted, and that's because we've had a conversation with the contracting or program office. So, P, nope, you're never. That's not published to the public.
Thank you, both of you guys. Appreciate that. On existing and new opportunities that are geared towards specific SB set-asides, is ICE open to moving opportunities to unrestricted if there are small business teaming requirements? 30% of the work on the winning team goes to 8A as an example. Patrick or Anita?
I'll just say that first off, like, we don't gear a requirement towards set-asides. It's informed by the capabilities. So it really depends on our market research whether we determine which set-aside and even whether a set-aside is appropriate. So I don't know if that's directly answering the question, but I wanted to make sure I addressed that part.
Yeah, and that I agree. That's how the process works. So.
Excellent. How open is ICE considering other cloud environments beyond the usual AWS, Azure, and Google? Steve, do you want to take this? If not, I can. I know we did an acquisition last year related to our cloud needs.
Yeah, you can take it.
I believe that the current cloud contract was awarded to 4 points, and it was an open compete for all cloud providers, not just the traditional ones that you mentioned here. And I believe Oracle also is on our list of cloud providers. And we went through, I believe, and picked a generic cloud hosting provider for that very reason. So we have a broad range of capabilities available to us throughout that contract vehicle. So we are not just, oh, look, we're AWS, Azure, and Google. We are looking and do look at all of the possibilities for our cloud environments. Steve, anything else that you would add to that beyond that?
No, sir.
Okay.
Hey, Chris, let me
Yes, sir.
go back to the last question about the small business set asides being
Sure.
moved to unrestricted. So, and this is kind of a question for Patrick. When in the beginning with CDOS, weren't we kind of looking at and focusing on the small business arena until market research led us into a large, an unrestricted arena?
You're asking me whether we switched for CDOS. I'd have to go back and check all our different plans for CDOS. That's gone through quite a bit of market research. So yeah, right now CDOS is unrestricted, so that is not geared solely for small businesses. Was there
Right. So,
was
so
there
to to specifically answer the question, as I recall, initially we were looking at small businesses, but as we got further along in the market research, we realized that we needed to move it to unrestricted. So that does happen, but it happens more conversely with new mandates to go from unrestricted to small business. So that's kind of flipping the coin on that question, but I hope that answered it a little bit better.
And I will just say this too, with regards to APFS, if we posted it as small, APFS is a forecast. It's just that with anticipation on what we're going to award and how it's going to be awarded. I always ask that question before I post anything. Is it going to go small or unrestricted? But it's just a guess, and it can change at any time based on the due diligence that's completed in market research. So, yeah, I'll just say that. Not specific to CDOS, but that's the way APFS works. So we always try to encourage vendors not to start building a team or anything else around APFS. You want to wait until you get more information regarding that specific requirement.
Okay, I want to recap really quick here. We have probably 5 or 6 questions left from the folks on the call, and we've got 11 minutes left. So let's be cognizant of the time here at the end here. We want to make sure we get it done properly. I'm going to try to go through these as quick as we can. So folks, please speak up when you can. Keep your answers brief, and we can always follow up if we need to do that further. Sabat Consulting, does ICE regularly use contracted PMs, BAs, OCM, and IVMB consultants on your dev implementation projects? If so, are these roles open bid or usually solicited through Mass GSA? I don't believe we have anybody in the DevSecOps development side on this call today per se. But I don't believe we go out very specifically for those roles generically. Those are usually very project-based bodies that we go after. So I don't think we go after like, oh, each time we want to do an award, we go after the different people that we need to actually implement projects. These are usually in larger multi-year contracts that we do these projects.
Yeah,
Patrick,
with that, Chris.
Okay. Yeah,
We don't specifically go out and get people on project by project kind of bit. It's usually part of an existing contract that is geared towards that requirement.
I think the better way for me to say that would be we would have a larger contract vehicle, and if we had a new task, we would award it on that vehicle, and those labor categories would be obtained from that particular task. That's probably the more accurate way we do that. Patrick Cortez, are there current upcoming opportunities for customer service help desk products? This includes internal IT help desk ticketing products. We're, I believe, very happy with our ServiceNow implementation. We've continued to make sure that for multiple years now, and I do not believe, unless Patrick, you're aware of any other procurements down in the pipeline, but I believe we're completely good with what we have now.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any specific for help desk right now.
Yeah. Will the EDS be issued under First Source 2? Carlton Myers said, we do not anticipate this being a First Source 2 award. Next question. If you had to describe your weakest link in your overall IT strategy support, what would it be? Mr. Hall responded, all the priority initiatives I described are areas in which ICE is looking to improve on our technology processes support. Identifying specific weak link would be subjective at best. Yeah, right, because everybody within each division has goals that they're trying to achieve. So yes, I think that is absolutely true. Thank you, Steve, for that. Last question today. Does ICE do directed 8A awards? And I see Carlton Myers is responding to that now, but maybe he wants to pop on and here we go. We have done direct 8A awards before is the answer to that. So that is the last question that we're taking today. Let me double check.
Yeah, I
There,
don't see any
actually,
hands.
there were a couple more that didn't get published. Let me turn off the ability to ask new questions. We got a couple more minutes. Let's get these last ones in.
Okay.
Let me publish these real quick. Just give me 1 second. Do you look to use STARS 3 more in the future to meet your 8A requirements? That was from Patty Paul. I don't know, Anita, or anybody from the acquisition side. Do we?
We use 8A stars quite a bit. Probably more than any other strategic source because it is an 8A vehicle and a best-in-class vehicle. So we do use 8A stars quite a bit.
Yeah, saying the word more is subjective, right? So thank you for that, Anita. When will we have solicitation dates for RFI on the professional analytics service at Pacific Enforcement Responsibility Centers?
I don't think that's one of ours.
Yeah, that's that would be, yeah.
I would reach out to maybe Tommy can follow up with one of our other divisions to answer that. And then while I have the mic, Chris,
yes, sir.
I did find that APFS number for that one person who had asked that question. So I don't know if there's a way to type it in, but
you can reply in the chat if you go back under that question.
Okay, I can do that. I'll go and reply in the chat, and just because I'm already saying it, it's F202-306-1609.
Can you repeat it one more time, Patrick?
F202-306-1609.
Thank you so much. Ryan Madden asked, is OAQ planning to leverage CIO SP4 as a strategic sourcing vehicle now that those tracks are being awarded? Thank you for this team for putting this session on. Thank you, Mr. Madden. Appreciate that. So again, is OAQ planning to leverage CIO SP4 as a strategic sourcing vehicle now that those tracks are being awarded?
Yeah.
Yes.
Assuming it's anything similar to CIO SP3, and I haven't looked at all the language in the ordering guide yet. We've used CIO SP3 very extensively.
Thank you, Patrick. Last question. In terms of automation of security, hardening of systems, Linux database, middleware, do you all have anything currently in place? If not, who would be the person to reach out for discussing capability? I don't believe, Steve, that we've run across anybody and that we're hardening our own systems beyond the federal DHS guidelines for hardening operating systems and hardware. We're not building our own custom.
Yeah, I don't have an additional answer to that other than that direction. I mean, that question could probably be directed again through Chris Lee to the appropriate folks to get it answered.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Thanks, Steve. I've said it so many times, my coworkers now repeating me. So, yeah, so Chris Bradham, you asked that question. We have not run across anybody, or we're not aware of any teams within OCI that's doing that. And I don't believe I've even heard HSI doing that specifically. I mean, I know from an industry standpoint, heard a number of times different 3-letter agencies that are doing that kind of work without naming them. But yeah, if you email me, I definitely can ask the question specifically to the teams that I know that could respond to that. So that is all I have from the Q&A. I want to thank Taisha for publishing all the questions while I started working that today. That was excellent. And Tommy, I turn it back over to you.
Sure. Well, I hope that everybody enjoyed the presentation today and got a lot out of it. If you are trying to set up capability demonstrations or discussions, please email Anita, myself, or Chris, and we'll get to it as soon as we can, because usually after these events, we get swamped with requests. So we will get back to you. So please, utilize our email and we'll try to set something up for you. And we look forward to seeing you again sometime around August for our next presentation. And have a good day.
Thanks, everyone.